This is the Hamilton Khaki Pilot Automatic Chronograph. Just like people, every watch has its own personality. If this watch were a person, it would be a teenage boy. It's on the right path to adulthood, maybe developing some athletic ability or affinity for an academic pursuit, but it hasn't fully matured into a productive member of society yet. This is a pilot's watch. The big face, large numbers, the style of the angular hands, all taking cues from what defines a pilot's watch. But, like the teenager, it doesn't yet have everything figured out. A pilot's watch should have a large, legible dial, and this does, sort of. With a 42mm case size, it is definitely large enough to showcase the Arabic numerals, displaying the seconds at each hour, except the quarters. But there is a problem. The legibility part. The face is large enough and the numbers are large enough, but it is the lack of color contrast that is the issue. The case, steel. The dial, a faint sunburst silver. The chronometer dials are radial patterned silver. The second, hour, and minute hands, polished silver. The applied Arabic numerals, you guessed it, silver. Although if you look closely and hold it in the correct light, you are rewarded with a beautiful linear texturing of the numerals, which plays exquisitely with the sunburst of the dial and the radial lines of the chronometer dials. You will find yourself twisting the watch in the light to see the dance of reflections, but, unfortunately, to also determine what the time is, since the polished silver hands blend into the surroundings. The singular splash of color comes from the tip of the chronometer seconds hand in a carefully adorned bit of bright red. I find myself turning on the chronometer just to watch the sweep of the red triangle slide around the dial. Like the teenager, you can see the potential in the watch as you look closer, although some of its execution is clumsy and adolescent. Most pilot watches exhibit a large crown that would be easy to turn, reminiscent of the days when pilots wore gloves. But this crown, while large enough, is quite recessed into its crown guards, which aesthetically plays very well with the chronometer start, stop, and reset buttons, but makes it a little difficult to unscrew. The crown and two pushers all being adorned with the Hamilton H, push, pull, and or twist, depending on their function, vary positively, although it takes a little bit of effort. Luckily, you don't have to wind this watch by hand. The Hamilton H31 movement is a modified ETA Valjoux 7753, which normally would have a 42-hour power reserve, but thanks to mainspring improvements by Hamilton, it boasts a 60-hour power reserve. Fitting this movement between the protruding sapphire caseback and slightly domed front crystal lends a chunkiness to the watch that cannot be ignored. At 15 millimeters thick, it sits tall on the wrist. The size and heft of the watch lends a commanding presence. Hamilton Watch Company is definitely not the new kid on the block. First established in 1892 in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, it resided for 111 years. It was picked up by the Swatch Group in 1974 and finally moved its headquarters to Biel, Switzerland in 2003, where it still resides today. Hamilton has been making fine watches for decades, and this Khaki Pilot is no exception. With its tried and true workhorse movement, solid construction, and one of the most solid secure bracelets I've ever felt, this watch will provide years of continued reliable service. Like the teenage boy, this watch is attempting to find its way in the world. Maybe a hair too flashy and slightly ADD, but it is solid and reliable, benefiting from a positive upper middle class upbringing that will most likely go out and join the high school football team and probably be an MVP. College pro material? Not necessarily. But this watch is a star in its own right.